Welcome to Pop Cult, where we talk reality TV, celebrity chaos, and pop culture throwbacks.
Hi everyone. Oh shit, my laptop is about to die. Hold on.
Wait, but it's plugged in, don't worry. Oh no.
I pulled it out of the wall. No.
I was like, not this again.
No. Nope, it's okay. It'll charge. I had pulled it out of the wall. We're okay.
I keep putting my blanket on and then I'm like, freaking roast.
I have to have a blanket on or else I feel unsafe. I can't explain that. Okay. Hey guys. I hope Avery leaves that in because I don't know.
Oh my god, wait, sorry, hold on.
What is playing? Is this your nighttime song?
It's like, if my nighttime song. If I leave my TV on like the home screen for too long, then it starts to play like ambient backgrounds, like a fireplace.
Oh my
or something,
god,
and I forget that it like plays music. Oops. This is chaotic. This is a chaotic start. And it's very fitting for the topic at hand.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Hi guys, we're your hosts. I'm Julia.
And I'm Avery.
And we post 2 episodes every week. Tuesdays are for the Reality Digest, where we talk everything reality TV. And Thursdays are for the Fame Files, where we talk about, where we revisit defining stories throughout pop culture history. And today we're going to talk about Woodstock, which, were you alive?
So yes, this was the year of my birth.
But like,
right before
by
the new
this
millennium.
month.
Yes, I was.
Okay.
Matter of fact.
So
I was
Avery
like
was
3 months old.
Fresh out of the womb.
Mm-hmm.
My parents got married this year, so I was not yet.
It was a big year for our family, if I must say. And this event was some wild shit to kick off the new millennium with. We are talking about Woodstock 1999, not the original Woodstock 1969.
Oh, should have clarified.
So
I just called you really old then if somebody didn't understand.
Right. That would make me like 2 years younger than my mom. That would be kind of crazy.
Sorry.
But yes, this is Woodstock 99. Do you know anything about this event? What
I know talk to you about? That my civics teacher in high school went to Woodstock. And I know 69. That there was like a, what?
Woodstock 69 or Woodstock 99?
I don't even know what that is. I'm talking about Woodstock 99.
So Woodstock 69 is the original Woodstock, like where all the hippies were out.
Sure.
Do you not know what Woodstock is?
No. What?
I'm
learning.
Like the hippie music festival?
Yes. Is that not what we're talking about?
So it's all the same like festival, but there was 3 different ones. And the first one, the original, was in 1969, which is the one that you probably have heard about, where like it was like this beautiful display of music and it was like love and peace.
I'm talking
and blah,
about
blah,
the
blah.
Poop Fest. The
Okay. I stand corrected. So your civics teacher went to Woodstock 99.
Yeah, he was at Woodstock 99.
That's crazy. I wish we could get an interview with him.
That's the one that I know about.
That's wild. Okay. Oh, cool. Okay. I love that. So you're definitely going to learn something today. Yeah, this was an insane event, honestly. I feel like now I'm like dying to talk to your civics teacher. But honestly, civics is a more important subject in school than we actually make it. I feel like we need to do more civics.
I wouldn't know because COVID happened and I didn't have to do anything.
That's rough for you. Although I would have loved that if that were my senior year of high school. I didn't do anything.
But like he was a great teacher. I would have loved to have finished that class. I think we're Facebook friends, low-key.
God, we should have gotten an interview with him. Anyways, he would have been like, "What are you talking about?"
Even like, anywho, who are you?
Yeah. So honestly, just a disclaimer up front. I do feel like I am not even able to truly capture the severity of the events that I'm about to outline in this episode. So I would recommend. Most of the research I just got from various articles and stuff, but I did watch a documentary on Netflix. It's called Trainwreck, Woodstock 99, and it's on Netflix. It's a 3-part series, and it really is like talks with some of the festival organizers and like people that worked the festival and that were there, and so a lot of that is obviously not in here, but it's crazy. Like even if you don't have time to watch the whole thing, skip to like episode 3 maybe, but there's a lot going on, and just keep that in mind as I'm like outlining some of the stuff. If you're like, oh well, that sounds like general chaos but maybe not that bad, no, it was that bad. It was really bad. Before we get into that, I'm just gonna quickly run through a little bit about how Woodstock 99 even came to be and where the Woodstock brand kind of originated from, because it was a brand. I think that was something that I didn't realize. Woodstock in and of itself was like not just this one-off event, it's like this overarching moneymaker type of brand event. So
Yeah, I
in
didn't know
August of right, yeah, I was surprised by that. In August of 1969, the Woodstock Music and Art Fair was held for the first time in Bethel, New York, which is in the Catskills region of New York State. The tickets cost between at that time like $18 to $24. Adjusted for inflation, that would be around $120 to $160 now. And in the 1960s, going into the 70s, hippie culture was at its height, and the US was in the middle of the Vietnam War, which was a huge catalyst for the peace movement and just general rejection of like traditional authority and government. There were many people that were living this very like what I would now refer to as like a granola lifestyle. Like hippie was the term that they were using back then, but like I would call that granola. But it was very much like there was a lot of internal unrest about the fact that we were overseas fighting the Vietnam War. And so that was kind of like part of the reason that this subculture, this 19 became so popular. There was also just a lot of music being made around that time, and like very big artists like the Beatles had emerged in the 60s. The slogan of the original Woodstock was 3 days of peace and music. Sounds lovely. And for largely it was. Culturally it was extremely successful, and obviously everyone still knows about it today. Well, maybe not actually.
Sorry.
So funny. I like didn't even think about the fact. Sorry, I didn't even think about the fact that you maybe didn't know what the original one was. Financially, however, it was a complete failure. But it was so iconic because of the fact that every major artist was performing essentially, and I think there's this like idealistic view that we all have of the hippie movement in this of the 60s. It was only sort of like natural in my opinion that they would try and recreate it, which they did. And for the first time, 1994, on the 25th anniversary of the original Woodstock, they planned another festival. It was a stacked lineup of artists like Aerosmith, Metallica, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, but it also had its issues. There was a ton of rain, which made the entire grounds basically a mud pit. Not the same mud pit that you're thinking about, but
Yeah, no.
there was also just like very muddy situations at Woodstock 94. And the biggest issue, which is something that kind of happened at the original Woodstock, was that people had found ways to break through the fence to skirt security and get in for free. So because of this, they lost a ton of money. Like people just didn't buy tickets because they're like, oh, we're just gonna sneak in. Now you could literally never do that, but back then clearly you could.
Yeah.
But the problem was that the organizers of this festival were like, oh shit, like we just lost a shitload of money again. We need to make that money back. Which is basically when they decided to start trying to execute another Woodstock in order to replenish their funds. Which brings us to our topic for today, which is the 1999 Woodstock Festival, which was planned to celebrate the end of the millennium and the entrance into the 21st century, and also would have been the 30th anniversary of the original. The tickets cost around $150, not adjusted for inflation. So back then, I'm not sure, that would probably be like maybe $300 now if I had to guess. And there were going to be around 100 acts across the 4-day festival on 3 different stages. So it's like Coachella, honestly.
Yeah.
But
is it still in
smaller.
the same place?
Good question. So the venue for Woodstock 99 was actually in Rome, New York, which is about 100 miles from the original 1969 venue, and was a former Air Force base. So there are literally still like airplane hangars on the grounds of this festival, and like barbed wire everywhere, just like very military. It's a military base. Like what else would you expect? It used to be, so the base was called the Griffiths Air Force Base, which used to be a Superfund site, which is, I think, an area that is owned by the US government that is used to store hazardous materials. This isn't to say that there were still hazardous materials when the festival took place, but like at one point there were hazardous materials on the grounds of this festival, which I don't love.
No.
The festival was held from July 22nd through July 25th, and their slogan was "Not Your Parents' Woodstock."
That's a good slogan.
Yeah, I know, right? Isn't it? It's cute.
Like, the idea is good. Execution, place, I don't know.
To be determined.
Yeah.
There were two major players involved in executing this festival. The first was a man named Michael Lang, who was actually the co-founder of the original Woodstock line, and he was also involved in the 94 Woodstock as well. And alongside him was a man named John Scher, I think is that Scher maybe. And he was a music promoter, a very well-known music promoter for many big bands like the Rolling Stones, for example. And so when Michael Lang came up with this idea, he's like, I need someone who's really relevant in today's music culture to help me plan this. So he hit up John and was like, what do you think about planning the worst festival in the history of music? And that's what they did. And I walked into the office and I told the CEO of Disney Channel, I want to make history. And that's what we did.
Radio Rebel.
Anyone who doesn't know that reference,
get with the program.
While I feel like this venue is an insane choice, and most other people did too, John felt that it was actually the perfect venue because of the fact that it had much of the infrastructure that they needed to set up a festival like this. So for example, it had room to house up to 15,000 people, which is normally something that they would have to build for a festival like this.
Well, okay.
So they had spent millions and millions of dollars for the 94 festival building all of these like accommodations that were, I'm assuming it's a legal thing, like assuming legally you have to have certain things in order to hold a festival. But of course, there were other stakeholders who had concerns about where they had decided to hold the concert. And other than just like logistical things, I really think honestly their biggest concerns were kind of the aesthetics. Like it just really did not match the vibe of what Woodstock was supposed to be. It's supposed to be like this hippie music moment that's like, think like green grass, rolling hills, just like a nice little nature vibe. And it could not be further from where the original Woodstock was held. Like it's basically just a bunch of asphalt.
Yeah.
But ultimately, John and Michael had the final say, and they decided to move forward with an airplane hangar, an Air Force base. One issue that they were trying to avoid was an incident from the 94 festival where almost 500,000 people basically broke down the fence or the barrier around the grounds to skip lines and break in for free, like I mentioned. With this venue, because it's a military base, there was already an 8-mile wall around the whole site, so no one would be breaking in or out.
Problem solved.
For the record. Right. Or out being the key phrase here.
Yeah.
Because the issue is that now everyone is trapped with little way to get away from any sort of unsafe conditions were they to happen. Nonetheless, they move forward with the festival, they get the acts lined up, everything's sort of in place, it's seemingly going to be a huge hit. And when the festival first began, the initial observations were a few different things. I'll leave them up to your discretion whether or not you think these are good. One observation was a good portion of the attendees were teenagers and college students, like some even as young as 14 years old.
Way too young.
Right. And how did they even get there? Like, that's what I'm wondering. Their intentions were not to partake in a peaceful music festival, that is for sure. They knew that there would be drinking and drugs, and even just the performers had a totally different vibe than the original Woodstock. Like, metal and hard rock are not necessarily the most zen, peaceful styles of music. Like if you were to look up like pictures, or I don't know if there would be footage, but at least pictures of the original Woodstock, like everyone's like laid out. I mean, I'm sure there was areas where people were raging, but like everyone's sort of just like hanging out, sitting on the grass, just chilling. I mean, like they're probably smoking weed, but it's chill. It gives a chill vibe. This is not that. A huge thing that they overlooked was the climate of music at the time. In the 60s and 70s, the music was, I couldn't even really tell you the genre because like I'm just not a music buff like that, but a lot more like mellow music and like a lot of the artists were a part of this like peace movement when it came to the US being involved in the war, and so it wasn't like this super, it's not like it was rave music, if I'm making any sense at all.
Yeah.
But in the 90s, we're looking at like metal bands, hard rock, like I feel like this was kind of when like screamo first emerged.
Okay.
And this is this is just not the same vibe.
No, very different.
Yeah. So obviously, like many music festivals, the people attending are camping out on the grounds. So when they arrive, security's like going through all of their stuff and took any food or drink that they had with them, even water. They were fully taken by security,
Bad
who went
news.
through everyone's entire bag before letting them in.
Bad news.
Bad news bears. On top of this, so now they don't have any water, but thank God, because Budweiser was a sponsor of the festival.
Basically water.
You can see where this is going. And there was some sort of like beer garden on the ground, so people, many of whom were likely underage, were heavily drinking almost immediately, now that any other sort of like liquid had been taken from them. People were selling, right off the bat, people were selling drugs out in the open, mushrooms, weed, acid. People were walking around fully nude, topless, like the nudity was rampant around this joint. That would have been enough to send me. I would have sent myself home packing. Like, I would have said, this is not the place for me. I'm good. But even with all of that, at first it seemed like it was going to be a great event. Like, the vibes were feeling high. But quickly things started to spiral. And because of the drinking and drugs and the young demographic, it quickly turned into a scenario where male attendees were yelling crude and misogynistic things at female performers. For example, Sheryl Crow, like they kept yelling at her to take her top off because so many other women were just walking around completely topless at this festival, and just generally saying like gross things to her. The general vibe was that it was just so much like misogynistic male ego frat boy types, and it just totally went against everything that the original Woodstock was meant for. Sheryl Crow has even said that this was the worst performance she's ever had to do, and considered ending her set early because of the crowd.
No, that sucks.
I know. And I think that's something that, again, I mean, I hope it's coming across in the way that I'm saying it, but like the documentary does a really good job of showing how the male energy was just making it feel like a really chaotic and unsafe environment. The actions of these like young men.
Yeah.
Alanis Morissette, who, fun fact, I think we talked about this in the Ryan Reynolds Scarlett Johansson episode, but I think that was like your mom's first concert, was an Alanis Morissette concert.
I think so. I want to say so.
Iconic, honestly. But she was also booed and had things thrown at her during her set because she was opening for another band that we'll talk about a good amount, who was really, really popular at the time, and I guess they just like didn't want to listen to her set. But like, how horrible is that?
Like, it's well known there's going to be an opener before a bigger artist. Get over it.
Like, I didn't want to listen to Ed Sheeran open up for Taylor Swift at her Red Tour, but I did. And I did it without throwing something at him.
Yeah, literally.
But like I said earlier, I just think where the organizers really went wrong is that they were so unaware of the kind of music that a lot of their chosen acts created, because it was a lot of what they were calling new metal, NU-metal, which is like a subgenre of alt metal intended to rile up rowdy crowds in general. So like at just a normal show or a normal concert, and then multiply that by an entire festival. Just ruminate on that idea. Because of the fact that all of these people were so young, they're just not used to having no one there to tell them that they needed to like take it down a notch or that they needed to chill out, because at this festival there are no consequences. And this was because they had cheaped out on security, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And not to mention, because security had confiscated any outside food or drink before people entered the festival, there were almost immediately food shortages. People were pissed that they were paying outrageous prices for tiny amounts of food and water, like, and so now they're like mad at the organizers because they feel like they're being ripped off, to the point where it was clearly so obvious that even the performers started to notice. At one point, a group called Insane Clown Posse, which I was like,
what a name.
That's a wild name. What a thing to name your band. It's giving they played that game MASH or whatever it's called, and just like
yeah. Let's put these three words together.
Yeah. Someone was like, what's your stripper name? What's your stripper name? And then they just put them together.
Sounds like it.
But at one point during their set, they started throwing $100 bills into the crowd, which of course incited chaos among the group of people who were likely hungry and also broke from how expensive the food was. And they had no other options because they're in the middle of nowhere. It's not even like they could have just like skirted out for an hour and like gone to McDonald's or something, you know? And on top of this, the vendors were realizing what was happening, that they were running out of food and water for people. So they started gouging the prices to the point where a bottle of water was around $4, which adjusted for inflation is $7. Which honestly, I feel like I've definitely paid $7 for something, a bottle of water at something like a concert, which is diabolical.
Yeah, I definitely have as well.
Yeah. And a little like personal pizza was going for around $12, which would be $25 adjusted for inflation today.
Wow.
Ripperoni, honestly. So now we have a massive group of people who are, and when I say massive group, I mean like at any point in time, they were probably anywhere from around 200 to 250,000 people attending this concert in any period. I saw reports even saying that there could have been upwards of 400,000. Do with that what you will. But so we have literally hundreds of thousands of people who are hungry, thirsty, high, and drunk.
Horrible combination.
Horrible combination. Even if there were a free water station that might be safe, it was likely empty or had been broken. And all in all, upwards of 700 people were treated that weekend for heat exhaustion and dehydration, along with 1,200 other people for other various medical issues. And you might be wondering, Avery, why wouldn't the water be safe? That's
Oh God.
I mean, 1999, like that feels like maybe we should have our water quality on lock, right? Like just a thought. But because their trash and sanitation budget had also been cut, it didn't take long for trash to start building up and the porta potties to take a turn for the worse. My worst nightmare.
No, I'm not excited.
Lock in, because it doesn't get better from here. To make matters worse, there happened to be a heat wave going on, and the weather that weekend reached the 100-degree mark, where the massive concrete tarmac definitely did not help, nor did the crowd that, like I said, reached upwards of 400,000 people. Because of the lack of accommodation, many people were just sleeping on the tarmac, fully just exposed, no tent, nothing, because the area's hotels were apparently booked because of another event, which is something that you would think that the event organizers would try and make sure wasn't the case.
Yeah.
It was so bad that even some of the artists were unable to find a place to stay. Because the event was just overcrowded in general, it did not take long for the porta potties to start overflowing, which meant that there was just sewage like everywhere, just like flowing downstream.
Ew.
The water eventually, like after the festival, was tested and did, unsurprising, but it did show to be contaminated with E. coli.
That's so unfortunate.
Right. All of the overflow was just literally like flooding into mud puddles across the grounds. And because it was so hot, people were covering themselves. They were using the mud as a way to like cover themselves and cool down, because like they had sunburns and everything, and just to protect themselves from the heat. And so obviously like a bunch of people got sick, and some even got trench foot from all of the moisture.
Nasty.
Floating around them. The health conditions were so bad that along with trench foot, there were even people being treated for trench mouth.
What even is that? What is that?
I literally am not even going to explain what it is, because it's actually foul. Like, just
okay, I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
Make an inference based on what you know about trench foot. But basically, like, what had happened was raw sewage had leaked into the drinking and shower water. And because it's in the shower water, people were also getting horrible rashes on their skin from the bacteria. Many people just like dipped out early and left because of the conditions, but also because of the smell. Like, can you imagine how bad it smelled? Oh my God.
Why wasn't everyone leaving? That's what I'm not getting.
Genuinely, it's such a good question. Like, it was funny. Like, the documentary, there was like a whole portion of the documentary where they were like, the broadcasters were interviewing people that were leaving. They're like, this is not at all what we basically signed up for and thought it was going to be. And they left at a good time, because it was not long after that the violence started. And I do mean violence. Like, I'm not even just talking about like throwing a water bottle at a musician, which is also not a nice thing to do, but it's minimal in comparison. It seemed like a lot of the chaos was stemming from the song choices of the performers, and John and Michael themselves have pretty much blamed the events that happened completely on the performers, inciting riots and violence, which is a cop out for sure. Like, you should have had way better control of this event. But one group in particular that received a lot of criticism for inciting the chaos was a an American metal band called Limp Bizkit.
I'm familiar. I know the name.
Are you?
I don't know any of their stuff, but that's like a notable name. I know that name.
I had never heard of them, I will admit. They definitely don't look like people who would be in like a world renowned band if you were to look up a picture of them. But they were an American metal band who had the #1 album in the country in July of 1999. And this is actually who Alanis Morissette was opening up for when they were like booing her during her set. One of their most popular songs was a song literally titled Break Stuff. And people did take that literally. Because
Oh,
during
Lord.
the song, they were ripping plywood from the fences and like pieces of the stage off to use to like crowd surf. They were climbing on the sound towers and the scaffolding, ripping pieces off. You know, like the big metal scaffolding that they use to set up concert venues, like that holds everything up.
Oh, yeah.
They were jumping on those and like to the point where they were falling to the ground.
Wait, how'd they get up there? Did they climb it?
They climbed them. They climbed up them.
Because they've turned into monkeys now.
They've literally turned into like anarchy. It's insane. It's like anarchy.
But like, you're telling me people can leave? So I'm just not understanding why these people are staying.
Right, like they all had their cars there. There's like I
Yeah.
saw a picture of the parking lot with their
Like,
cars.
just drive away. I don't know.
Like, I can't even make excuses, but if I had to play devil's advocate, there are two things that I would be thinking about. Number one is that so many of these people were just so young that they didn't even really understand what was going on. Like, they didn't realize how bad the conditions were. And two, they were on too many substances to be able to drive themselves home.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. Call somebody, I don't know.
Maybe just wait it out. Sit in the parking lot until you're ready to hit the road, you know? If anyone, I know you don't watch the show, and I feel like I reference it kind of a lot, but the way that they were just kind of going so feral reminds me a lot of the show Yellow Jackets. It just seems like human behavior that feels so foreign because nobody acts like that. Anyways, but the fact that, you know, new metal shows were typically a bit rowdy was standard and like pretty well known, but combine that with the substances, the heat in general, I just feel like makes people go insane sometimes.
It does.
And yeah, like everything just got out of fucking control. The consensus, even amongst other artists, was that Limp Bizkit kind of like fucked it up for everyone. But the lead singer I'm not sure like when exactly he spoke out on it, but at some point he has said that he did not realize what was going on in the crowd because there were so many people there. And it's like, I'm sure the lights are in his face, whatever. Like, he just couldn't see what was going on.
You couldn't see them on the scaffolding? Sure.
Right. That's why I don't really believe him. And he was kind of like riling them up too. Like, he kept saying things like, this shit is insane. Like, you guys are going crazy. Like, let's keep it going type thing. Like, kind of hyping them up. Probably not intentionally so that they would tear down the venue. But, like, these people are clearly idiots. So that's what they're reading it as. But from the lens of the attendee, it was almost like they were so frustrated with the organizers and the staff that they were kind of turning their insanity on them and started even tearing down that 8 Mile wall that I mentioned earlier.
Oh
like
my
they're
God.
literally knocking it down, pulling entire panels off of it, kind of as I don't even know, like an uprising almost against these people who they feel like have just organized this cash grab.
Again, they could just leave.
Right. That would be the normal thing to do. Another instance was during Fatboy Slim's set. Do you know who that is?
No.
I think I had heard of him, but I wasn't, obviously, same as you, I wasn't familiar with any of his music. But during Fatboy Slim's set, somebody, who knows who, started driving a literal car, a truck, through the crowd during his set. Like, nobody was killed by this
Well,
truck.
thank God. That's insane.
Right. It was like moving very slowly. I'm sure people were injured, but basically, like, so he stopped his set when he realized what was going on. And basically, what they were doing was driving this stolen van through the crowd as like almost like an elevated surface, like a podium. There were people standing on top of it, like dancing and cheering.
Okay, that's insane.
So,
Like what? Like there's no words for that.
right. I hope it's coming across as crazy as it actually was. There was like a quote from him saying, "It looked like a dance podium, but it was moving." And that's when I started to get confused and concerned.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm pretty sure that all of this is happening on day 2. At this point, the event was already hanging by a thread, and the staff is basically just like, okay, we're almost done. We just have to make it through like one more day. And like the set that they were really concerned about was the Red Hot Chili Peppers, who were the basically like the main act, like the main headliner, like Beyonce at Coachella, for example, is the best way I can describe it. But they start their set and their guitarist is fully nude on stage
Well,
already.
that's
Like
okay.
this is how we're kicking off.
Not a good start.
Like butt ass naked. Not a good start. You're so right. So this is really just setting the tone. I had to be assaulted with the view of his ass cheeks in the documentary.
Oh no.
So you're welcome for not making
I
me
can't
see
believe that's
that.
like on video.
No, literally. Not even like a black box was over it.
Nope.
Or a blur like they do on Love Island. But like I said, ultimately the event had turned into complete anarchy. And at this point, like, not only are there riots breaking out, there are fires being set on the ground.
Well, that's nice. Just to stay warm and
Mm-hmm.
cozy.
Right. Because I'm sure it was really chilly
I'm sure
in
they
New
got a little
York in
cold.
July during a heat wave, for sure. Because they were headlining the festival and this was essentially the final set, they decided to cover a Jimi Hendrix song called Fire, which he performed at the original 1969 Woodstock. But where it all really took a turn for the worse, if we weren't already there, is that prior to their set, an anti-gun group had handed out candles during the set with the intention, which admirable intention nonetheless, but the point was that they wanted it to be a tribute or vigil to the students who were killed during the Columbine shooting, which had happened just a few months prior. But
Okay.
obviously, that unraveled quickly. Like, lovely sentiment. Obviously, that was like a tragic, devastating event. I just think, like, nobody was. Like, this group was doing this unsupervised. It's not like they had necessarily let the organizers know that they were going to do this, so they probably just didn't realize how
And they were just handing out
violent
lit
things.
candles.
I don't know if they were lit, but I'm sure people had lighters with them
Okay.
because this unraveled quickly. It basically set forth a complete riot in the crowd, and they were literally setting the grounds on fire and starting bonfires all over the place. And this song that was meant to be like an homage to the original event ended up in people flipping cars, including emergency vehicles, and looting um like other people's tents. It's estimated that $22,000 was also stolen because they were breaking into the ATMs.
Yikes.
Yeah. An MTV news crew even had to evacuate their broadcast tower after people started shaking it and ripping parts off during the Red Hot Chili Peppers set. In 1999, TV Carson Daly was like working for MTV as the host of a show called Total Request Live, or TRL, which I think was a show that would premiere like music videos, artist interviews, playing new music. So they sent him in to cover the festival. He has said that he was getting things thrown at him and that he literally thought he was going to die, that things were so bad that his boss told he and his crew that they had to leave.
Yeah, like get out of there.
Yeah. In the MTV footage, you can see people climbing up on the scaffolding and tearing pieces off and jumping on it until it quite literally collapsed. People were even looting the supply trailers. Like there was an Ace Hardware trailer. I'm not sure what it had in it, but they were taking things from it. Security and the performers tried to de-escalate the crowds, but they ultimately had to call in police and state troopers because the security that they had hired, which went by the name Peace Patrol, they just weren't cutting it. I know you're shocked.
Yeah, I'm really shocked.
In total, 3 people died during the festival. A man in his 40s who did have a pre-existing heart condition, but still, a 28-year-old woman was killed walking alongside one of the nearby roads, and a 24-year-old man who collapsed in a mosh pit during Metallica's set. Along with the deaths, it was later revealed that there were several sexual assaults reported and even 5 rapes. There were likely more. 44 people were arrested in total by the end of the festival, and there was millions of dollars in destruction. Attendees aside, it wasn't a great experience for the artists either. There were actually a few bands that had dropped out of the lineup even prior to the festival. Not sure if that was because they had maybe heard bad things, but thank God they didn't go.
For real.
Right. They had many artists even just staying in like mobile homes around the grounds, and some of the smallest artists were only paid around $1,000 or even less for their appearance, which was potentially even split between like their band members depending on who it was. For context, there were headliners at the 1969 festival 30 years earlier who were making significantly more than that.
Yeah.
I believe like some of the artists even left early because it was just a disturbing scene. And
That's
after
fair.
like I would have been out of there. After the disastrous, this is just a funny detail, and I think we'll probably do an episode on this as well, but after the disastrous 2017 Fire Festival, Woodstock 99 has been referred to as the original Fire Fest. There was a press conference for Michael Lang to address the events of the festival because it was that destructive and apocalyptic, and he basically blames it on a few assholes, those are his words, not mine, but never addressed actually why they started rioting and blamed everything on the culture of anarchists. John Schur said that the generation of attendees was, quote, entitled and fearful of growing up.
Okay.
Right. As if you aren't the adult in the room.
Yeah.
Lang does admit that the way that women were treated at the festival was horrible, but Schur basically just puts it off on the fact that there were so many people there that they couldn't have stopped something like that from happening, and basically said that it wasn't a big enough issue that anyone brought it to the attention of the event staff, so it was only really detrimental to the women who it had happened to and not the event at large, which is why it wasn't known about until after.
He needs to shut up. What was that?
Isn't that the most messed up thing to say? Like, sorry that happened to you, but it didn't happen to enough people that we felt like it was an issue.
So, we just didn't care.
And that was recent. Like, he said that in the documentary. That wasn't even like this was, 20 years ago.
That's just...
Right? Crazy. But also the reality was they had cheaped out on their security and safety measures. So if...
They cheaped out on everything. Like, what?
Even the fucking porta potties, for God's sakes. Criticisms of the organizers have called out the fact that if there hadn't been so much greed involved in cutting the cost for the logistics and the price gouging, the riots would have never happened. So, like, if they had just gone about this in an ethical way to start, this would not have been the case.
Like, sorry you have to spend money to make money, but, like, get over it. That's a known thing.
Right. The events essentially ruined the Woodstock brand, and as for what's happened more recently, there's not been much, but apparently there was a plan for Woodstock 50 in 2019, which never ended up happening due to issues with funding and organizing, but they had already actually paid some of the artists in the lineup in advance, which totaled to around $30 million. So they've just lost, like...
Did they have to get that money back?
No, I doubt it. It was in advance. I'm sure that the artists kept it. I guarantee you they've lost like probably upwards of $1 billion off of trying to organize these festivals at this point.
Yikes.
Just in case you were curious, some of the artists that they did have in the lineup for Woodstock 50 were Jay-Z, Miley Cyrus, Halsey, and Imagine Dragons.
What? 4 different artists, like...
Right. Imagine Dragons.
Like, none of them are similar. That's funny.
Maybe if it was like Woodstock 2012, I would get that, but
I don't know.
And... the only other thing that's really been said about it recently was from the mayor of Rome, New York, where the event was held on the 25th anniversary of Woodstock 99. He basically said that his goal with the festival was short-term economic benefits, community exposure, and uplifting the community in general, because apparently the Air Force Base where the festival was held was shut down in 95, which caused huge numbers of people to lose their jobs. Just like morale was really low. It kind of seems like this was an Air Force town, like that was like the main industry, and the people that lived there were just really feeling the loss. He says that the community was excited about the festival overall and likely looks at it through more of a positive lens than the media portrays the event.
I don't know how we would get a positive lens through that.
Right. People did die at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that brings us to the end of Woodstock 99. That was a bit of a short one, but I just thought that it was just such a
Short but
crazy,
crazy.
I know, packed full of insane behavior, if you will.
Just like such an insane example of just like mass chaos.
I know. And just
There's
like,
just not anything you can do unless you take precautions prior. Like once you lose
yeah,
control like that. And they just kept making bad
and
decision after bad decision, like the price changing, like crazy.
taking people's water away from them, like stuff like that. To me, it's like a terrifying example of how primitive humans can become, if that makes sense. Like, it just feels like at any moment, the moment that you tell people that there's no moral compass upholding them to good behavior, that they just go
Mhm.
insane. Like, that's a
And
bit
like
frightening.
yeah, it's definitely very uncomfortable, I guess is the word
Hmm.
I'm looking at. I don't know.
I think that's a good word for it. Uncomfortable
Yeah.
in any way, shape, and form. I mean, people were like literally shitting into the
And
fucking
like
dirt.
disrespectful of the people who did the event, but also disrespectful of the people who acted the way they did at the event. But
Yes, also a great point. And to the artists, especially the female artists, like, get it
yeah,
together.
yeah, for
What
sure.
were we doing, you guys? Don't let your 14-year-old go to a festival. That's weird.
Also, just like don't go to a festival. Those things scare me.
Right.
You won't find me at a festival. I'll tell you that.
I don't think I've ever been to a music festival.
I've been to a very small in my past, but like in my past as if I'm 80 years old. In the past,
One time I was supposed to go to Music Midtown in Atlanta, but it got canceled. And honestly, that was probably for the best.
like my school would put on a very loose music festival or like a local band situation. A bluegrass
Yeah.
festival. Like what harm can be done there?
Yeah, no, for sure. That's probably the only festival I would go to, except I don't like bluegrass music, but if I did, I would go to one.
The vibes are good.
Oh, I'm sure that honestly, if I had to guess, it's probably similar to the vibes at Woodstock 69,
The good
which
one.
I'm glad that you learned about. Yes, the good one,
Yeah.
the original one. I mean, who really knows how good it was? I'm sure it
I
had
don't
its
know.
fair share of issues, but we weren't alive, so.
Fair.
Um, but that wraps up this week's Fame Files. Don't forget to join us on Tuesday for Reality Digest. And at this particular moment, I am unsure what our next Fame Files will be,
It's a mystery to us all.
including myself, the one who
Yeah.
writes them.
Yeah.
So if anyone has any requests, our
Oh,
DMs and Spotify comments are open.
well, that's fun.
Send us requests if there's any. So I think we're gonna start. I mentioned in our previous Fame Files, I think we're gonna start doing celebrity deep dives, like really dive into the lives of some celebrities. So if anyone has anyone that they would like to hear about, please let us know, and we will do that.
Sweet.
But with that, go forth and gossip, I guess.
Have a great rest of your day, knowing that you weren't at Woodstock 99, unless you are my civics teacher in high school. I'm sorry you went through that.
Yeah.
I'm sure you
Just
weren't one
shout
of
out
the
to
people on
him.
the scaffolding.
He's a survivor,
I'm glad you made it
honestly.
through.
Seriously.
I
Peace,
feel like
love. Peace and
I'm trying
love
to
to
remember his
all.
like story like this whole time. I'm trying to remember like what he told us about it, but I don't think he stayed the whole time. I think he might have like dipped, which is fair.
Good choice. Yeah, I
Good
would have done the same
choice.
thing. Peace and love to all.
Merry
Toodles.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Okay, bye.
Happy.
Bye! Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we will see you next week for more pop culture chaos. The stories we cover are based on research and publicly available sources. While we strive for accuracy, some details may be disputed or unverified, and this episode is for entertainment and informational purposes only.